No. I mean, I was given a Red Bull. Yes. All right. Sure. No. Yes. I think maybe a third to half the way through or something like that. I'm not certain exactly. No, I can't pin the exact timing I suspect he would be able to answer that more precisely, but I cannot recall the exact point at which it wasn't towards the very end, and it wasn't towards the very beginning. I don't recall, no. I'm not sure. I might have, I'm not sure. I don't recall doing so, but it's possible. Well, I think I'm not sure if I asked that he join or not, um, as the reason that he joined, but I would have certainly at some point asked that he join once the subject of investment came up. Sorry, I think that would have probably been the if he wasn't there already, I would have requested that he join upon learning that the PAF had made a multi-billion dollar investment into Tesla already. That's correct. I don't think he would have perhaps had his phone, but I don't think anything else. I think I was briefly with Yasir alone. I just as he was like leaving the conference room, I think, but just for like 10 seconds or something like that. I did not notice it. Yeah. No. I didn't. I don't know if they did. I did not notice them doing it if they did. I think about 40 minutes ish. No. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't recall getting anything. Well, every now and again, people give me things, but I don't. I usually just put them on my desk and don't read them. I mean, usually, because it's like some sort of like generic document. You didn't give me anything that was like. I don't think he gave me anything, but I'm quite sure he did not give me anything that was highly sensitive. No, I have a business card, so I don't know.
During the
No.
meeting.
No. No. During the meeting? No. I don't think so. Not during that meeting. Uh, sure. Um, the you know what the article essentially, as I mentioned, was that they disclosed that they had made a multi-billion-dollar investment in Tesla up to the limit of 5%. This was new information to me, and that the only reason it had not gone above 5% was the disclosure constraint. And they'd obviously done this without any written agreement or without any requirements or anything at all. And they had done this, that they had at one point, I think, in prior meetings said that they would invest in Tesla. And I was like, okay. And they said, okay, they did what they said they would do. Okay. Okay, these are people where you can take their word. If they say they're going to do something, they're going to do it. So they were extremely clear that they wanted to take Tesla private. That I could set the terms, essentially any reasonable terms I could set. That they had been interested in taking Tesla private for 2 years. They corrected my misunderstanding that this had been delegated to Masa and said for 2 years they have wanted to take Tesla private. They had invested billions of dollars with no written agreement, no agreement of any kind, just as a good faith gesture to show that they are serious. And if I would just say what I wanted to do, they would do it. So there was no question in my mind whatsoever that the funding was secure for this deal. Right. That was the closing sentiment. I recall that they were unequivocal in their desire to take Tesla private, that they were willing to take essentially whatever terms I asked for within the bounds of reason, that a larger investment would require a larger strategic involvement, meaning factories and that kind of thing. And so it was really just a question of what do you want to, they're just saying like, how do you want us to proceed? We want to do it, let's do it. Yes. That's correct. He said, just tell it, he said, tell me how you want to do it, and we'll do it. So, not whatever terms, but tell me how you want to do it. I think he had some language and like, provided they're reasonable, we will be fine with it. So there's no, obviously it can't be like, let's go public at $8,000 a share. Okay, not reasonable. This would not be reasonable. But within the bounds of a reasonable take-private transaction, they were extremely certain they wanted to do it, and moreover had been certain for 2 years. This was no question. Sorry, take private. So, obviously here you have an extremely wealthy fund, arguably the wealthiest fund in the world. They had, with no conditions, no effort at all, made a multi-billion-dollar investment up to the 5% point, explicitly constrained only by the reporting requirement. There was nothing else holding them back from investing more. So this was really, it was up to me. Do I want to do this take private or not? If I want to do it, they will support it. The onus was on me to say how I wanted to do this deal. So I just needed to tell them what they needed to do, and they would do it. That is almost explicit, I would say. I mean, meaning it's like, I don't know that I can say the exact words, but that is the exact meaning. I believe so. It was something like that. Yes. It just that it's not. It can't be like $8,000 a share. It can't be, something completely crazy and outside of the bounds of a normal take private. He said, like, tell me how you want to do it, and we'll do it. And there was like just some, like, I think it was reasonable, but it may have been it may have been a synonym of reasonable, but it's like, tell me how you want to do it. And as long as the terms are reasonable, I don't know if it was exactly the word reasonable, but it was, if not something, it was something of equivalent meaning, and we'll do it. No, I know. The next step would be for me to tell them what terms I wanted. No, but they were very clear that it was up to me to. It was very clear to me, this deal is done. Tell us what terms you want, and this deal is done on your terms, provided those terms are not outrageous. In another way to say it, like they didn't use the word not outrageous, but essentially, provided those terms are not completely out of bed with what a normal take private would be, this is a done deal. Yes, but they're pretty clear that this was not like some narrow definition of reasonable. Like, essentially, like as long as they don't feel like they're getting ripped off, they would be fine with it. No, it would just be, unless these terms are unreasonable, there's not like some fancy definition of reasonable, unless as long as the terms are not a ripoff and are fair, and under the normal, structure of, as long as they're not out of bounds of a normal take private, this is a done deal. No, they were telling me explicitly in the meeting that the terms were, I could have whatever terms I wanted, provided they're not crazy. No, no. I mean, it was very clear that they wanted this to happen. The only thing that would inhibit this is if I had demanded crazy terms or unreasonable terms. Otherwise, it's a done deal, case closed. No, no. I mean, it's important to bear in mind that they had already invested billions of dollars. They spoke with their money, okay? And if somebody invests billions of dollars up to the 5% point, and that the only thing stopping them is the reporting number, not anything else, and obviously there wasn't even a verbal or written deal. They just did it. These people mean what they say. They have the resources. You can take them at their word. They're going to do it. They really wanted to increase their investment in Tesla by whatever means necessary. I mean, I think the right way to view this is that this was unequivocally a done deal, provided I did not come back with outrageous terms. Yes, yes. So as long as I didn't demand like something egregious, it's a done deal. Well, I presumably they would decide, but I mean there's a natural framework for whether a take private is egregious in the price premium or not. I mean, really, it's just if I say, for example, demanded all shares I must vote all shares. They may have objected to that. That is not something I would have required, but that could have been an inhibitor. If I'd said that's there must be like some huge sum of money that comes to me personally as a result of that, that would be egregious. If I'd said instead of a sort of typical premium on a take private or acquisition, that instead of a 20% it was 200%, that would be egregious. But anything within the framework of a normal take private would not be considered egregious. No. No, they would have been fine with that. I mean, they already have 5%, so they have 5% of the public markets with no terms and conditions at all. And they were explicit that that 5% limit was just due to reporting requirements, not due to anything else. So let's say if reporting requirements in the US had started at probably 10%, they would have acquired 10% in the public markets. Something on that order. Yeah. I did not believe there was any minimum. They already had spoken with their funds and invested 5%. I think no, because they already had a smaller stake in Tesla, and they were clear that the only thing that inhibited their stake from being more than 5% was the reporting requirement. So they're clearly more than happy to have a larger stake in the company, but and it just happens that U.S. reporting requirements start at 5%. So that's what they would. They were clearly happy to have 5% with no terms and conditions, no requirements, nothing. Um, yes. No. As I said, I think spoke to Yasir for maybe 10 seconds as he was leaving the conference room. Um, and the substance of that conversation was just him repeating, "Let us know how you want to do this. We want to do this," or something to that effect. Yes. I'll get back to you. There. Yeah. Um, I think you did. I don't think so. No. Yeah, I heard they saw. I heard that. Yeah, that like at some point that they'd he'd give them a tour. Yeah. No. Uh, I think council told him. I don't recall any discussion with that. I don't recall. I think I may have had some brief conversations. I don't recall right now what those conversations were. I might have had some, but I probably had some, but I do not recall the substance of them. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I do not recall anything substantive. I think we most certainly had conversations of some sort, but I don't recall anything substantive apart from the obvious. I think something to that effect. Yes, with Egon Durban on Monday night. I think it would have been before the Tuesday tweet. I recall having some brief conversations with Sam, maybe Deepak briefly. They're pretty brief. Just I think both of them. Not sure. No. On that night. Uh, well, there was a call with Steve Rosenblum, and you talking like at any point subsequent. Sorry, what's the precise? What date are you referring to? I don't think so. It's possible, but I don't recall. I don't recall that now. Sorry, which date? So I think it'd be helpful if there's some documents that would help anchor specific dates. That would be helpful. Um, yeah. My recollections are a conversation with Steve Rosenblum, a conversation which is on the Saturday, I believe, a conversation with Egon Durban on the Monday before the tweet. I think I talked to Michael Dell on the Saturday as well, but did not mention anything specific about the Saudi. I was just really asking him about did he find that being private was good? Um, like did he think that did he regret going private? Did he think it was a good idea? And yeah, He was the legal counsel that Michael Dell used in the take private. Yes. Silver Lake. Just a conversation. Yes. I probably had a few conversations with Sam discussing the pros and cons of a take private and a larger Saudi investment. I don't recall having any conversations, but probably there might have been a few. I don't recall anything substantive. No, no, it's possible that there was some tech that he sent me a text or something, but I don't think I had a phone call. I do not recall certainly anything substantive. It's possible he may have, but I do not think it was substantive. I don't think so. No, no, sorry, at what period of time? No, yes. Sorry, sorry, the second page here. Yeah. I've not seen it in this format before, but yes. 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 It is. Yes. Pardon? I sure. What? Sorry. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. Of course. Like it. Yes. This was some months earlier this year, I think. Um, we met at SpaceX, and I said, I've always wanted to consider taking Tesla private. Um, but that was it, pretty much. And he said, well, if you're ever thinking about doing that seriously, you should give me a call. Yeah, I mean, he said a bunch of nice things about me and the companies, and that's it. And he talked a little bit about his prior experience with take privates, and it's like, I should give him a call if I ever think about this seriously. Um, I think in that meeting, that first meeting that I had with him earlier this year, he gave me some kind of like document that was like, these are people who would be interested in, I think, in a take private. It was somewhat generic, like here are a bunch of people with money um, that he knows that would be interested in potential take privates, and something that he'd be happy to support if we wanted to go in that direction. No, specific to Tesla. Yes. I mean, I didn't consider it to be especially. Uh, I mean, it's like, here are a bunch of people I know that have tons of money and what would be interested in helping Tesla. He thinks would be interested in a take private situation. I'm like, but I didn't consider that to be of like particular note because, sure, I kind of already knew that. No, that was his opinion. no in-person meetings. I don't think there were any calls. It's possible that there were kind of like at some touch base texts or emails sent, but nothing substantive. Yeah. Yeah, that's about right. I did. I told him about that the Saudis wanted to take Tesla private, um, that they were super supportive, like they wanted to do this deal, um, that I could pretty much dictate the terms, um, and but I did say that my preference would be to have a broader investor base, and not have too much not have the Saudis be too large of a shareholder. Um, and I think I actually did say, like, I think, maybe something on the order of 15%, maybe up to 20% would be okay. But from my standpoint, not from theirs, this is from just purely from my standpoint. And that, but I told Egon, I think, look, I think most of our investors are going to remain in the company. And so, but what does he think about bringing other investors in that to have a more diversified investor base, so that there wouldn't be excessive influence from any one investor? He said, absolutely, there's a lot of interest, and he's confident that there are many others that would step up and join this take private. I don't think so, but he did not mention it. So this, he was going, I think he was going entirely on the basis of the people that he knew, and that had been, say, part of the Dell take privates and other transactions that he'd been involved in. So I don't know if he had conversations with them about it, but he did not convey that he had. He did convey that he was confident that there would be many other investors who would be interested in participating in a take private, and that was later borne out when they were asked. When those investors were asked, I believe every one of them said yes. No, he was just very supportive, and it's like I said, if you want this, like, this is up to me. If I want this done, it'll be done. No, it's possible he signed something before the meeting that we had at SpaceX, but I didn't know, there was no. I didn't personally sign anything with him, but obviously he's someone whose confidence can be trusted. Yeah, I did. It's a good question, because his initial assumption was more along the lines of the Dell deal, which is like essentially his assumption was more along the standard template of a take private, where all of the investors besides me, or almost all, would be bought out, and I took pains to emphasize that this is not what I wanted. In fact, I think he said something to the extent of, like, well, there will, be a squeeze out of small investors. Like, I do not want a squeeze out. This is don't want anyone being forced to sell. This is not what I want. I'm just trying to find a way to execute better. This is not about trying to increase my ownership in the company. I don't care if there's zero change in my ownership, but I need to build the cars, I need to scale this company, I need to do so with the minimum distraction, and this seems like it might be a good way to do that. And so he was a bit, I think, taken aback by that, sort of surprising. I think he said, well, that's a noble principle. I was like, well, I'm just trying to get things done here. I'm trying to be useful. And I said, like, I've got this situation at SpaceX, which is very little overhead. This does not involve lots of difficult short-term optimization pressure and that kind of thing. We don't have all these like class action lawsuits. Like every time the stock moves, they'll assume correlation is causation, and then file a bloody lawsuit. No. No, it was like, he said, well, as I recall, he said, well, that's going to make it a lot easier if lots of investors remain. It's going to be a lot easier than what was done with Dell. And he said, it actually means that you may actually need less capital than Dell, ironically, despite being a more valuable company, than was required in the Dell transaction. Because I told him I believe most, if not all, of our major investors would retain their ownership, and I thought that most investors, not even the large ones, but the small ones too, would retain their ownership. I see. He said, like, well, in that case, this is really going to be, even though it is nominally a very large take private on a dollar value, the actual amount of capital needed to take it private may be relatively small compared to other deals. Large and shareholders in general. The concern of like can non-high net worth small retail investors remain with the company was not raised. This was in terms of and my counsels advised me, like, don't get into mistakes and everything, but like a fundamental misunderstanding that I had was that there'd be some means of retaining the small shareholders. That was a fundamental misunderstanding on my part. No, no. I don't want to misremember this, but I think it was the Saturday before the Tuesday tweet. If I am not I'm. Is that correct? I'm not sure exactly. Yes. Uh, as a lead or co-lead counsel on a potential take private on the advice of Michael Dell. I had actually talked to Steve Rosenblum, I think, almost 2 years ago. That's what I had a brief conversation with him then. He did. And sorry, the first part of this, can you probably repeat? Yeah. On Friday when I wrote the email. I think it was a Friday. I'm not sure when maybe it was a Wednesday instead. Yeah, essentially the point at which I decided to make the offer was when I sent the email. I'm going to say make a decision, and then I take action. I believe so. Yes. No. No. Oh, yeah. I mean, the part of what would inform my decision for any potential take private would be the result of how the market would react to the earnings call. If the price went stratospheric, then a take private would not be feasible. Yeah, it did increase quite a lot, but not to a degree that would make a take private impossible or at too high at like some crazy price. Well, if there was a very big spike in the stock, I don't know, like let's say the stock went to $500 or something crazy, or went into like just a very steep day-over-day change, then it's just not realistic to do any kind of take private transaction, because people would want to see, is this where does the steep increase level off? Where does it stop? How, like we couldn't be if there are times in Tesla's history where we've had these quite big spikes in the value of the company, including times when I thought the value of the company was really, the share price was way too high, and I said that publicly. And I thought this could have been one of those times. And it wouldn't be reasonable to expect a take private to take place if there was a premium on a spike. Like if the stock spiked, and on top of that you had a premium, then you've got like that wouldn't be feasible. Or anyone really, like it would exceed the bounds of reasonability. So if the stock had spiked, say 50% instead of 15%, then it would not have been, I think, viable to consider take private. Yes. No. Correct. That's correct. That was the biggest factor. I'm there. There's just generally, I think it's good to sort of sleep on these decisions. And it's hard to say, like, in like this sort of like in our minds, kind of the kind of neural network that is our brain, what feels like the right decision, what seems like the right judgment. And there are often many small factors that weigh into ultimately a decision, and it's difficult to say exactly what led to that decision. Therein lies judgment. Yes, yes, definitely. Like as I said, if there'd been some massive jump, it would have not been realistic, or at least at that time, it would have at least. That's not to say that that a take private was off the table, but we would have to wait for the spike to subside. Um, well, I think certainly, like, what level of just since I had not done a take private before, it's sort of I knew there would be some overhead. Like there would be necessarily a short-term spike in overhead of managing a take private, uh, like, and that was a factor in like how risky is it going to how much is it going to affect our short-term performance, and will it create too much of a distraction, such that we would not achieve our targets of being cash flow positive and at least slightly profitable in Q3 and Q4. That was a big concern. So I certainly thought that this is something we need to decide quickly or not at all, or quickly or postpone to some point past the next few quarters, which are of pivotal importance. I mean, I had that Red Bull, so I've got a lot of energy. Yeah, sure. No, I think those are. I mean, I'm really trying to think hard about and make sure I give you as accurate an answer as possible. Um, I mean, I think it's very important to emphasize that I mean, I describe this in my in the blog pieces. It's like really this like the point of Tesla is to advance sustainable transport and energy, um, and so my mental framework was, you know, it was very arduous running two companies. And so what is the area under the curve of the least pain? Because there would certainly be something on the order of months to maybe a year of significantly increased pain, but then presumably decreased for the following 4 years. So, you know, what's the net present value of pain, if you will, and overhead? And obviously that was like very difficult to know. So I tried to put some uncertainty bounds around that. And but this is definitely uncharted territory for me. So, well, it's charted in the sense of, obviously I know what SpaceX is like, but it's not charted in the, like, how do we get from Tesla to a SpaceX scenario? How feasible is that? You know, will a set of private investors even post-deal make onerous demands? You know, like even if your deal is clean, but you've got a board that maybe is has strategic, has like motivations that are non-financial. I had this experience with my first company, and it was a difficult situation. We had a Knight Ridder Hearst. We had as investors for my first company, Zip2, terrible name, worst name ever. But we did do the first maps and directions on the internet, among other things. Oh, sorry, we did do the first maps and directions on the internet. Oh, so my first company that I created was Zip2. Such a bad name. This is what happens when you let advertising agencies choose your name. It's brutal. It does sound like Knight Rider, totally, but with two Ds. Yeah, and Hearst and the New York Times Company. And we did do the first maps and directions on the internet, which was cool. First white pages, first yellow pages, and we helped bring a bunch of the newspapers, the smaller newspapers online. We helped enhance the websites of the major newspapers. But we did have those. We did Knight Ridder, Hearst, and New York Times Company were board members. So they did have these strategic objectives which were not necessarily aligned with the Zip2, and I felt that, you know, we had this incredible technology that wasn't effectively applied. So I had some concern, like I didn't want to be in that situation again. And although SpaceX is private, Google's an investor in SpaceX rockets and spacecraft and make them better, and we don't really worry whether something's on one side or another of a quarterly boundary, and or like a rocket blows up. Touch wood, may that not happen again. We don't have like some class action lawsuit from a bunch of people that said we somehow should have known that a rocket would blow up. Like, no one, do you think we'd have launched the thing? I was like, this is crazy. So, okay, there's like much less headache. Can we get there with Tesla? Didn't know, you know. So, thought of uncertainty. Thought it was worth investigating. So, the calculus changed, and it was like, okay, we're going to stay public. Ugh. This is not ideal, but nonetheless, on balance, probably the right move. Hopefully you guys don't torture me too much.